Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this regularly scheduled council meeting for Thursday, July the 1st. If you'll please rise, our invocation will be led tonight by Reverend Wanda Nichols, and she's the pastor of Garden of Gethsemane International Church Ministries, and then our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our Fire Chief, Lonzo Wallace.
Thank you. May we please bow. Eternal God, our Father, we come before your presence now with thanksgiving in our hearts. Thanking you, dear Heavenly Father, for allowing us to see another day, a day that we had never seen before and one that we shall never see again. Father God, we come now for a meeting of the minds, coming, Father God, with petitions and requests, Father God, with issues set forth, Father God, by the community, for the betterment for our personal lives and for all the individuals that reside in this beautiful and blessed community. Father God, we want it to be known that we can come together as men and women. We can come to an agreement. Father God, we want it to be so duly noted in the records of this great council. We want it to be written in the hearts of those that are assembled here in this great hall. And we want a proclamation to go out through this great community that we came together on one accord. We came together in total agreement with everything that we set before this council for their careful consideration. And Father God, as we prepare to leave from this place, but certainly not your presence, we ask that you continue to keep us in the ark of your safety. Keep us in your mighty outstretched hand, Father God. We ask that you keep your angels encamped around us, keeping us safe from all hurt, harm, and danger. Father God, and we'll be so careful to always give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. And it's in the mighty name of Jesus that we ask all of these things, Father God, and we thank you, and amen. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Nichols, thank you for that invocation. Appreciate that very much. Chief, thank you. The next item on our agenda is an opportunity for a public appearance. This item is to receive comments from Mrs. Susan Peoples and Ms. Genevieve Gregg regarding the closure of Maxine Ray Clark Swimming Pool. Ms. Peoples, you want to begin? Welcome. We're glad to have you with us this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As stated, my name is Susan Peoples. And I'm here out of concern of the closing of the Maxine Ray Clark Swimming Pool. My concern is that Eastside children are not being able to enjoy the summer of swimming as most of the other children are. And I feel that as a resident, a citizen, and a parent and grandparent of this community, that our children on the east side should have the same advantages that the rest of Temple has. The pools that are located for them to go to, which is Walker and the Lions and the new park that was built, is between 6 and 10 miles for our children to commute to or try to get to, which is really dangerous for them to try to get out there. And we're really concerned that them trying to get from one side of town to another to enjoy a summer where they should be able to have in their own neighborhood that pool. I understand that there was a deficit of money that was lost. At first I heard it was $8,000, and reading in the paper I saw that it was $20,000. But in doing some research on that, I see that Park Pool is only open 3 days out of the week, which was on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and they were done in the evening hours from 3 to 6. And the rest of the pools were open morning, afternoon, and evening, with Lions Pool being open from 10 to like 7 in the evening. And to me, the scales just don't balance out as saying that the pool over on East Side, which is Clark's Pool,
is causing a problem. It needs to be closed. Our children are really disappointed, and to see chains put on a fence, locking them out, is really heartbreaking to our children in our community.
Good afternoon,
Ms. Gray.
City Council. I am Genevieve Gray. Excuse me, I am a native Temple-Lite. I was born and raised here, and my concern is twofold. One is because of Mrs. Maxine Clark herself, who did extraordinary work over 34 years in Temple. And even the Temple City Council honored her for her extraordinary work. And my deep concern is about when that pool was closed, her legacy was interrupted. And I think that she earned the right to have her name there. The city even knew that. And so what they did, they honored her by putting her name there because they knew she did such extraordinary things. Another thing, too, Miss Maxine was my mentor. As most of you know by now from the newspaper, that I am a product of a single-parent family. And many times when my father had to go to work, he worked three jobs. And the two jobs, in the morning and in the afternoon, he would take us to the swimming pool and the Jeff Hamilton Center, so Miss Maxine could kind of watch, for us. She not only did that for us, she did it for hundreds of other kids. This lady was an icon, a local icon, and I feel that, and I am truly disappointed that her name will no longer be in view of the public. She deserved it, she earned it, and I think it should be there, and that's one of the concerns that I have. The second concern is, just like Ms. Peoples said, our kids should not have to walk 3 to 6 miles to a swimming pool. I know you say the splash pad is a good thing, and I think it is too, but it doesn't take the place of a swimming pool. Swimming is one of the healthiest ways to keep fit, and we had a program coming up where we were going to work with Eastside low-income families and at-risk families, where we were going to hopefully use Clark Pool for aquatic activities to counteract obesity. And we're also, when kids are healthy, they tend to do better. And also, in the morning times, I think that they really need to be doing something. And I was going to get with the city, with Ken Sakura, because you all have been very supportive of what all we have done so far. I was out of town, and I had no idea that this pool was going to be closed. Had I known that, I would have been here much sooner, you see. And it's actually better late than never. I do want you to know that our next 2 months is the hottest months, of the year. Bored and frustrated children have a tendency to get in trouble. We were going to do what we could, to keep these kids, busy and also work on a lot of them for obesity. You see, all of them are not obese, but we see it's an epidemic of obesity. And so that's going to be one of our keys to work with them. We were not going to point them out and have like a whole swimming area of obese kids. We were just going to, plug them in and not just isolate them. We were just going to have them interact with all the other kids. But my main concern, like I said, Miss Maxine, she is the one that convinced Mr. A.J. Mercer, who was superintendent, of the Parks and Recreation at the time that I was going, to the swimming pool. She's the one that convinced Mr. Mercer to take a chance on me. I had no idea. See, some people can see things that you can't see yourself. They saw a potential in me that I did not see. I knew I could swim. I didn't know I could swim that well. So when Miss Maxine approached Mr. Mercer, he said, "Oh, no, Mac, we can't do that because she's a girl. We can't send nobody, she's a girl, and blacks can't hardly swim no way." So I had a double, trouble. I was a girl and I was black. So, but she convinced him to give me a chance. So what he did, he came down there 3 times, and I didn't know that he was coming down there to notice, and to observe me. I did everything that was asked of me, in the swimming area. And he was observing me, and I didn't know that. But he finally was convinced that I had the ability, to be a swimming instructor. So that's when he went to the city. He put his job on the line also because this was a first. There was unheard of for a black woman and I was only 18 years old, to be sent to a national aquatic school. I had to go out of the state because Temple was still segregated at the time. But when I got there, I did everything that was asked of me. And there was another guy there, 2 blacks out of close to 300 people. So when I got there, and the lady told me that, she said, "Okay, Womack," I was wondering, she said, "Let me see you go across." And actually, when she said that, I started to cross, but she turned her back because she just knew that I wasn't going to make it because blacks' bones were supposed to be too heavy, and we were going to sink, and she didn't want to see that. But, excuse me, that's funny to me. But, but anyway, I went over there, and she didn't even see me because she did not want to look at me sinking. So, okay, I went over there and back, and so when she came around, she said, "I told you to, to hit the water." I said, "Well, I've been there. I've been over there and back." And they were shocked, you see. And that's when we got the attention of all of those people that blacks could swim, And Kenneth Houston, he was 18 also, and he finally, when he was and later on, he became an all-pro safety for the Washington Redskins. He and I were up there together, and we came in 1-2, 1-2 in everything up there. And Kenneth was so much taller than me. He was 6'4", but I was 5'5.5", but we won everything. So we came back really pleased with that. And the thing that I really want to ask, and I know you might not do it, but I'm asking you, would you reconsider opening up the pool this year for 1 month and for 4 weeks? And if you could do that, I guarantee you, next year, that pool will be active and it will be productive, and we will make sure that it will be, because we were going to really work on the east side this time, really get these kids and families involved. So if you work with us, give us 1 month this year, and we will prove to you that the east side is very productive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Mr. Graham, I have 2 people signed up a public comment relative to this, and I'm limited in the public appeals, so only those that signed up to speak. Okay. 2 people, Lois Sullivan and Philip Schuler, have signed up to make a public comment, and since it's relative to this item, I'm going to ask that you come forward now, and then that way, because this is kind of an open opportunity for us to be able to dialogue, and in a public comment setting, we can't do that. So, Lois Sullivan, if you'd like to come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Lois Sullivan, and I've lived here 28 years, so I've seen a lot of changes with integration past First Street. And I guess what bothered me most with the article in the paper yesterday was how quiet this had been. How little the East Side knew of your intentions, which had to have been in effect since you started the planning for the water park on 5th and all the improvements at Salmons. And now here we are. East Side just finds out when they see the padlock. The general community finds out. By general community, I'll say the white community only found out when it was in the paper. And this bothers me, how quietly this was done. And well into the summer now. And I didn't know what was going to be asked about this month, so I haven't thought about that. But how you can say no to that is past my understanding. And when I read that article, and I don't know what I'll hear tonight that might change my opinion, but when I read that article, I thought of several words, but the main one I thought of was cruel. And I think that fits everyone that went along with closing Clark Pool. And that's it. Thank you.
And Mr. Schuler?
Barry Jones, members of the council, and council guests, I really don't know what I'm doing here. Unlike my predecessor, I haven't been here 28 years. I've been here maybe going on 3. I'm on my way to 3, so I haven't seen all the changes that have taken place. I haven't been here long enough to know about the demographics, so I can't use the terms east side, west side, north side, and south side. I just know where I live, and I'm trying to figure out where other people live. I'm pastor of St. Paul United Methodist Church on Avenue P next to Scott Elementary School. I'm here basically because I read the article this morning too, and I felt like I'd like to share my story. At the age of 10, my father contracted leukemia and died. My mother was, I guess, 40, in her 40s like that, even though she had taught under the authority of a permanent teaching certificate, which at that time, centuries ago, was acceptable in Texas. When she applied for a position so that she could support her 10-year-old child and a stepdaughter who was still at home, she was denied employment. She had been through 3 years of college and decided that she needed to go back. The income that she received upon my father's death was a whopping total of $125 every 3 months. Now, I realize 1949 money went further, but come on, give me a break. $125 every 3 months, even in 1949, wouldn't do much. My mother went back to school in the now defunct Daniel Baker College in Brownwood, Texas. She worked for the college in order to do so, and I lived in the girls' dorm. At the age of 10, I was too young to really be able to take advantage of it, I'm sorry to say. But that's the only time I was able to have that kind of experience, I guess. And then after that, she did receive employment locally, first-grade teacher, and taught 18 years, very productive years in Brownwood. She went on through her own initiative and got a master's degree. And during that time, she still had a 10, 11, 12 to take care of. And that meant also during summer months. In Brownwood, they had a park program. And my mother took me to that park program. Unfortunately, it was not a swimming pool program. There was not a swimming pool there. My mother had to find time on Saturday afternoons, at least about 30 minutes to an hour, to take me about 3 miles outside of town to a local pool where I could learn some swimming skills. Nevertheless, I remember the program, and I remember the people who worked in that program. The lady's name was Rayanne Hoyle, who I will always remember to this day because she had an impact on me in my life. I don't know what Mother would have done. I know that when she dropped me off, she felt very secure because I was supervised. I was safe. And I also had good models around me. And so I was disappointed when I saw that Clark Pool was not open to any community. A pool that I understand is in good shape. I know that Lions Park, I've heard rumors about, that would take a lot of money to repair and so forth. But if you've got a facility that's in good shape, that has the capacity of impacting students in that community who can walk. I lived a block and a half from where I went at that particular time. And at the same time, I'd like simply to say that it's not just for recreation of kids. It is for character building of kids. It is for being able to experience models of people who work in such facilities that will impact them for the rest of their lives. At the same time, it could also be of real assistance to parents who are doing everything they possibly can to improve their own status and means of being able to earn in an economy like we have now. Thank you very much for your time and for your listening.
Thank you, Reverend Schuler. About 1 year ago, we were working on a budget. It probably, without a question, the toughest budget that I'd been involved in since having been elected in 2002. I know it was an extremely involved budget for the staff, and there was a lot of work that was done last year in preparation for what was going to be probably the first decrease in sales tax revenue that we'd seen in the city in quite a number of years. And so we had some very, very tough budget decisions to make. And in all areas of our community, in all departments. And when it got to Parks and Rec, and I remember the discussions. They were open discussions. They were in open sessions. It was Walker Pool and Clark Pool were both discussed. We had just basically Lions Pool was closed. That decision had been made strategically. That pool couldn't be maintained any longer in the condition it was, very costly. We had actually made some decisions several years ago that swimming pools were just an extremely expensive proposition for our community. That's why we started to go to the splash pads. Didn't require near the maintenance. The costs associated with those pools were with the splash pads versus pools was significantly different. You didn't have lifeguard expenses. As far as the usability, I mean, those, unlike the pools, they're open from almost the time it's warm enough to start using the water facilities till well into the school year. Unlike pools, which typically open when school's out and they close when school starts. And so that was the background in which there was some staff recommendations last year as far as expenses to how do we get this budget balanced. And some of the recommendations were to reduce the hours on pools and or close some of our swimming pools as merely one item in a whole budget. And so the decision was made. The budget was adopted a year ago, well, last September when we adopted the budget. And within that budget was the closing of Clark Pool and the reduction of hours at Walker Pool. So that's when that decision was actually made, and it was made strictly on the budgetary position, and I might add, based on usage. The Clark Pool, the revenues from the Clark Pool were significantly less than any other pool facility we have, which said the usage was reduced greatly. Now, didn't analyze, I don't think we analyzed why that was down. We can ask Mr. Sakura here. We didn't know if it was because of the splash pads. Were the splash pads and the one in Ferguson Park, was that really the preferred recreation or water recreation facility that was preferred? So again, the decision was made for that budget year. It was not. I don't ever recall anybody saying this is going to close this pool forever. It was really in that budget year, and I heard your request, Ms. Gregg, and And I don't think this is an item that requires council action. Mr. Blackburn, would you see this as a council action item? This could be done administratively if it makes sense to do this. We know that if we open the pool, that it's going to close when school starts. So effectively, that's all that's going to be open is another month, if we can get it open. And we'll ask Mr. Secor to come up here in just a minute and talk about the logistics and possibility of doing that, and whether it's practical to do that, and what kind of cost might be associated with it, and where would we find the funds to do that at this point. But that said, versus this year, we are in a budget cycle again. The budget we have in front of us is to recommend that Clark Pool be closed again next summer. But that's why we do the budget, and we appreciate this input. This is what the budget process is about, is citizen input. Many things get changed throughout the budget process, either because of council input and citizen input. So if it is the desire, if the community, if you think that would be utilized, if you have a plan for your community to use this, now is the perfect time for us to evaluate that. And that is wonderful, because I agree with you, the swimming facilities are just absolutely wonderful facilities for kids, for all the reasons you stated. And so that input is extremely valuable. Now, that said, Mr. Secor, if you don't mind. And then any other council members would like to ask questions or make a statement or comment as well. Can you talk about is it practical, is it possible even? I mean, you have to hire lifeguards, you have to prepare the pool. I don't know what the state it's in now versus what it takes to get it to open and how long it can be open. Could you address that?
Well, yeah, thanks, Mayor, and members of council. And I agree with you. The process that we went through and working with the city manager and the council to close the pool was obviously not anything we wanted to do. It was based on decisions that had to be made to get the budget in line. So, and I think you've referred to the newspaper article several times, and the one thing in there is when we did talk to council, the city manager was, the pool's not permanently closed. When funding allows, we want to open it. I do think, if funds can be found, we could open the pool. We would need to find some lifeguards, probably. We could probably make it work in a short term with the lifeguards at the other pools, instead of someone maybe getting some days off they had, just being able to move some over there. We would only need to staff it in the water with lifeguards. We might be able to put some recreation people in there for some other responsibilities that don't require lifeguards. So we can make it work. The proposal for a month is probably good, because it'll probably take us a week or so to get everybody geared up, and then like you said, school would probably start in about a month's time. By the time we could do that anyway. The offer by Ms. Gregg is greatly appreciated. The attendance has declined, and over the years, at least since I've been here, and I've been here 12 years, and I don't know if that's because of the splash pad. Probably is recently, because the Ferguson's Park splash pad is our most popular one, and it's very well used. But it's also used primarily by younger kids. So, and the older kids don't really have a place for the pool. And I think the pool does get a lot of use from the whole community. But I can understand the Clark Pool situation, and if it's possible to do, we'll make it work. And I think to get more input, or to get more kids there, we do need the input and the support of the community. And we'll gladly take Ms. Gregg up on her offer to make that happen. That's what we need.
Council questions?
I think one very important point that you made is that it wasn't the intent by opening 2 new pools to close Clark Pool. That wasn't in the plan as far as, the overall scheme that was being hidden. I don't think that was it at all. It basically came up in last year's budget for this year, as far as asking all the department heads to find ways to cut their budget. And so they went to the items that were
costing them money, and started there. So it wasn't something that the council said, let's keep under the table and open 2 new pools and close this pool. Because the first time that I was made aware of any of that was during the budget process, similar to what we're going through right now last year. So I just want to make sure that point was clear. I can see how that would be a problem for a citizen. I would have a problem with that as well. So that did not happen. So.
Comments or questions?
No, I was just in terms of quick summary of what I'm kind of hearing from the council and from Mr. Sikora's comments and also from the comments from the folks that have spoken tonight. Be happy to ask Mr. Sikora. Again, I concur with the mayor's comments. I don't think this requires council action. I think administratively I can hopefully resolve it, and I think what I would ask Mr. Sikora to do based on the conversation tonight is work with the residents, see if we can identify and develop some common goals and common plan. We'll see what we can do to get perhaps the pool operational for some period of time this summer with some perhaps predetermined goals and objectives. And I want to underscore also what you have said, and Mr. Schneider also. Our process last year, which was open throughout the budget process, was driven by a couple of factors, especially when it comes down to the Parks and Recreation, but really cut across all the departments and all of the programs and areas and services that we provide. We were looking at last year, as we are this year, constrained revenues. I mean, just the economy, the budget, all those things, all those pressures were being felt last year. And in the process of those pressures being felt, the department heads were asked to look at how do we find, roughly last year, if I remember, it's about $1 million that we had to go locate to make the budget balance so that we could operate this year. In so doing, many departments, and especially departments like Parks and Recreation, looked at programs and activities that were low performing. And by that I mean not that there was anything low performing with the children or the adults or anybody in a particular program area. What I mean is low utilization. We just weren't seeing numbers at this pool or in this program area or wherever it was at. And so you look at, okay, where are the numbers at? Where are the people and the numbers to generate the program and the services and to support those? So very good to hear from my chair that the community in the area thinks that they can help us identify a plan and approach to where we can identify higher utilization because I think that's right on target with the kind of plan and approach and program and service we'd like to offer is one that's utilized and highly utilized. So again, with council's what I'm hearing from the council dais also is that council would not be adverse to us working with the residents, and we'll try to do that over the coming days. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sikora. Thank you very much. And to Ms. Peoples and Ms. Gray, this is the way government works. Thank you for coming to us. And to Ms. Sullivan and Devin Schuler, thank you for being here, making your comments. So,
I also underscore next year's budget. It's not in there for opening next year's budget, so that's something to be aware of and underscore because a plan will need to be made.
well, we basically have to pretty well make the decision that we're going to have some type of activity at Clark Pool next year, but then hope, that can always go the other way if for some reason what happens this year is we don't see the activity that you expect to have at the pool. So I hope for the entire city and for the East Side community and for the kids, we see that type of activity. And I thank you for your leadership in bringing those kids because they need that. So, thank you. Next item on our agenda is an opportunity for public comment. Citizens who desire to address the council on any item may sign up to do so prior to the meeting. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the council. I think, Ms. Nichols, you just signed up for the invocation, but didn't need to speak. And so we have signed up Mr. Joe Dodd. Mr. Dodd? And if you'll just wait just a second, we'll get it to where you can get the attention you deserve. Mr. Dodd, if you'll state your name and address for the record.
My name is Joe Dodd of Houston, Texas, 6615 Foot. I haven't been here months of Sundays. I used to come down here, visit, and got on Patsy's case about a lot of stuff that was happening when I bought some property over there on the east side. This time I came just to enjoy myself because I'm retired and I have nothing else to do but just come down to Temple and just enjoy Temple. Because I graduated here in '69. But right now, I went to the cafe on the east side over there at Blue Drop Inn. So I went in there and had a nice couple beers, have a good time, and next thing I know, I got a ticket. Why did I have a ticket? No parking. No parking. So I've been here I came back to go to court. So I had to fight for that because it didn't make no sense. A cafe got no parking at any time, tickets. Signs, should I say. No parking at any time, signs. I didn't understand that. A cafe got that? That don't sound right, that you would have no parking signs all over in front of the cafe, side of the cafe. You can't park. So where can you park? But when you got one, and I was doing a little background check on it and everything, and I haven't ever seen it before myself. At any place, I even went over here downtown, no parking signs or whatever, closed or whatever. So I'm wondering why is there no parking signs all over that place at the cafe? No parking signs at any time, even in front of the cafe. That's kind of weird that I've seen that. And I just want to just put that in y'all attention. Why is that so?
Thank you, Mr. Dodd.
All right, thank you.
Next person signed up is Mr. Michael Clark. He may have been hit on the rules. They didn't indicate Mr. Charles Dudley. Same. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items listed in this section are considered to be routine by the City Council, may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council on any item, it may be removed from the consent agenda by any council member and will be considered separately. This is item 4, A through I this evening, and we're going to pull at least item D for presentation, item E, 1 and E2 to table those items at the request of the applicant, and item H for a short presentation. Council, any other items off of item 4, the consent agenda, which we'd like to have pulled? D, E, and H will be pulled at this point. If there's nothing else from that, I'll entertain a motion on item 4, A through I, less D, E, and H.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda items 4A through I, less D, E, and H. There's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Day?
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lehman?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 4D is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a Chapter 380 matching grant agreement with Strasburger Enterprises for redevelopment improvements in the Temple Medical Education District and the South First Street Strategic Investment Zone corridor at 1802 and 1808 South First Street in an amount not to exceed $24,200 plus waiver of permits and fees. Ms. Hobbs.
Good, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tonight, you're considering the fifth application and grant agreement for grant agreements in the South First Street Strategic Investment Corridor, and it's also part of our TMID district. The project is located at the corner of Avenue R and First Street, and it involves two lots. You may be familiar with one of the buildings on the south side. That portion has been partially developed with a spec building, and on the northern portion of the tract, there is a building that is not currently being utilized that was the former El Corral Mexican food place. This is primarily a Chapter 380 grant is provided for in our guidelines. It provides for up to a maximum of $10,000 for landscaping and irrigation costs. In this particular grant, it's estimated that the match will be $7,109. Also, it includes a sidewalk grant. The estimate is $9,985. The match can be up to $10,000. Also, there's a special provision that we're asking for tonight, and that is because it is in the TMID district and there are guidelines in place and specifications for that district. We're trying to further those improvements, so we've included $4,200 for tree grates, and that's for street trees that would line on the First Street corridor. And in addition to that, our typical waiver of permits and fees. One other component, and this is a change to the submitted item that we had, as we were working through the site plan, which is currently in our Planning and Development Office, it came to our attention that in order to further the TMID plan, we needed to oversize the sidewalks on Avenue R. So this does include an oversized provision of $1,200, and the agreement would need to be adjusted as such. What that would include then, when you include both the grant match and the oversized participation, the estimated grant would be $22,494. The maximum would be $25,400. In return, Mr. Strasburger and the proposed development all of the improvements would exceed the city's basic ordinance and also meet all of the TMID conceptual guidelines and design. It is to install landscaping and an irrigation system per that design, which includes 3-inch caliper trees along First Street, 25-foot on center with tree wells, and a continuous hedge. And also along First Street, which would also include 3-inch caliper trees, spaced 30-foot on center, and it would also include a 6-foot wide landscape strip. In addition to those improvements, they would be installing a 10-foot wide sidewalk on First Street with curb and gutter, and also includes islands and handicap ramps in accordance with the TMID provisions, and also a 6-foot wide sidewalk on Avenue R. There are other improvements that are not eligible for grant, and that includes the asphalt parking, and they also plan to demolish the former El Corral building on the north. We've included a site plan. This still is a site plan in works. As we finish up the site plan, which should be done shortly, it will reflect all the things that are outlined in the grant agreement. And the applicant's rep is here, available to answer any questions if you have any, and also myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. House. Council, any questions? Mr. Schneider?
Yeah, Ken, I was, some of the pictures we've seen as far as lighting and tree grates and tree wells and those types of things, has there been a typical tree grate picked out for the area that would be consistent through the TMAD area or lighting? Has that been done that far with that?
There is. We have it's not codified, but there's some guidelines that we're using when we're doing these grants that has been through some public processes. There's there's a grate, there's lighting, benches, and trash receptacles that have been picked out, the style. That is an attachment to the grant agreement. Some of those elements are not required. If the applicant chooses to do them, they can. If they choose not to, for instance, install lighting, then they're not required to. But they are in place and are part of this agreement. And also part of that process in the selection of the streetscape, we did pricing to make sure that we were finding some more affordable, especially in regard to tree grates. They can become quite expensive, and so we wanted to make sure there was a durable design, but also that it was going to be something that was affordable.
So if they choose tree grates or benches or lights, there is a specification on it?
Yes, and it is part of this agreement as an attachment.
Other questions? Okay. Entertain a motion on item 4D.
Motion to approve item 4D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I presume that is to approve that motion as amended or as presented with the oversized sidewalk at the increased amount. And so that being the case, if there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jensen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams. Aye. Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 4E, 1 and 2, no presentation required. The applicant has asked that those be pulled for consideration at this time. They still have some details they need to work out internally, and they'll bring that back at a later date. So we can have a motion to table E1 and 2, please.
Motion to table item E1 and 2.
Second.
Motion is second. No discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jensen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams. Aye. Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 4H is to consider adopting resolution setting the date, time, and place of public hearings on the proposed fiscal year 2010-11 budget for August 5th of 2010 and September 2nd of 2010 at 5 p.m. in the City Council chambers. Mr. Blackman, you want to start?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Council. Very briefly, you did get through, or we did walk through a presentation in the work session. I think I've got 30 or 40 slides. I will not go through all the slides in the regular session here. We will, however, as we have done historically, post these on our website so that anyone has access to them. And we've also posted the FY 2011 preliminary budget is already posted on the website. It was posted when we filed the hard copy of the preliminary budget with the City Secretary's office last Friday. And of course, both those places are available for public review, public copy, whatever is needed by the public. With that said, I'd like to highlight just a few slides in the presentation that I gave you in the work session for the public's benefit. If you go to the next slide for me, one more. The calendar. If you'll note that today is the day that the council will set the public hearings on the budget. The mayor just mentioned those again on August 5th and September 2nd, two public hearing dates, and those are set today. On August 5th, the council will also set the preliminary tax rate and conduct a public hearing on the budget. On August 13th and August 19th, there will be two more public hearings on the tax rate, and then September 2nd, the final budget and tax public hearing, and then the adoption and setting of the tax rate. That is the calendar, the public process calendar for mostly in August, but one in September. Next slide, please. Every year when we develop the budget, and we start very early in the process from a staff standpoint, but I also try to engage the council early on so that we can talk about where what I call fence posts are, but those are really just policy guidelines for the development of the budget. And this year there were 4 fence posts set, or 4 guidelines: maintaining our fiscal soundness, maintaining our tax rate, aligning strategic, financial, and tactical plans, and then focusing on our core missions and our core activities. Next slide. Next. Missing some slides there. Let me, one of the things that I wanted to highlight for you, maybe it's a little bit later on in the presentation. No, they're not in, right after the fence-based slide. Could you go back one, Ellen? Yeah, there should have been another set of slides there. Very quickly, just leave it on that slide for a moment. One of the things that we talk about when we say maintaining our fiscal soundness is making sure that the budget is balanced and balanced in accordance with the charter, which is in essence our local constitution, as well as council policies and practices. And this one is done that way. So your FY 2011 budget meets that criteria, I believe. The second bullet there, maintaining our tax rate. I really did want to underscore what I have for the council and for staff also, but your FY 2011 budget maintains the current tax rate. It maintains the current water and sewer rates. It maintains the current drainage rates. It maintains the current solid waste rates. There are no rate increases proposed in any of those areas. There is no tax rate increase proposed. And in addition to that, it absorbs 2 years of declining sales tax revenue and forecast a third year of declining sales tax revenue. All of that, and we align with our strategic, our financial, and our tactical plans and our work plans, and we also focus on our core missions and activities. About 2/3 of our overall expenditures in roughly about a $100 million budget, about 2/3 of those expenditures are in the public health and safety, in streets and drainage. We got a fourth area, but those areas are our core missions. And most of our expenditures in those areas, we've been able to maintain those service levels by and large, even given those revenue restrictions. Okay, Alan, if you go to one more, maybe 2 more slides, and I'll stop. I'd be happy to answer any questions. This pie chart just shows you in a very macro sense, the total revenues a little less than $95 million. Where those come from, for all of our funds, we have several major funds that we work with in the city. But property tax, sales tax, water and wastewater revenues make up a significant portion of our overall revenues. Next slide. Expenditures, general fund, our largest fund. That is the fund that provides police services, fire services, park services, library services, animal services, most of the services that our residents equate to city governments and local government in that fund. Our water and wastewater fund is a proprietary fund or an enterprise fund, which means it's supported not by taxes, but supported by rates that are charged for the services that are delivered. And again, that totals a little less than $97 million. And Mayor, I'll stop there. Again, I've got several slides, but in the interest of time, I'll stop there. If there's any slides that you or council would like to highlight, we can pull up some of those and go through those. But I did want to make, again, just some general comments, and especially related to the availability of the budget for public viewing, and then the public hearing dates that we've also highlighted. Be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Blackburn. I think maybe one of the things to highlight is the fact that, in light of what we just heard, the fact that this is very open. It's a process in which we hold workshops, and we likely hold, we know one more on the 15th, and possibly as many as 2 more in the last 2 Thursdays of July. And so opportunity for public involvement is absolutely there. And so then we've got the public hearings that this item is actually scheduled to consider is the scheduling of the dates of August the 5th and September the 2nd for public hearings. So I hope during that process that what Mr. Blackburn just said is really understood. We have a phenomenal staff that is providing great service to our community, and we constrained ourselves with our fence posts to keep tax rates and fees and charges fixed in this economic environment that we're in. Everybody at home is having to do that, and there's no reason in the world that your government shouldn't do that as well. And so that's what staff took on to do at the direction of council as we set the fence posts in February or March, whenever we initially did that, and to put together the budget that they did with no decrease in significant services. There's little things throughout the budget, as we just saw an example of with the pool last year. If we choose to open that pool for next year as a result, then we're going to have to find those monies from someplace else. So anyways, that said, council, any other questions or comments you have? If not, entertain a motion on item H to set the time and place for the public hearings, August 5th and September 2nd at 5 o'clock in council chambers.
Motion to approve item H.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Jensen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 5A and B, both first readings and public hearings. They're on the same issue, so we'll take them together. Read them together, and then Mr. Mabry will present. First reading and a public hearing for 5A is consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agriculture district to neighborhood service district on approximately 1.29 acre tract of land in the Sarah Fitzhenry Survey, Abstract 312, Bell County, Texas, located at the southwest corner of State Highway 36 and Moffett Road. And 5B is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit for the sale of beer and wine in the existing convenience store for off-premise consumption on a tract of land being part of the Sarah Fitzhenry Survey, Abstract 312, Bell County, Texas, located at the southwest corner of State Highway 36 and Moffett Road. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, sir. This is a proposed rezoning from agricultural to neighborhood service zoning district. The purpose is to establish a base zoning district that would allow a conditional use permit for the sale of beer and wine from a convenience store for off-premise consumption. This is not a package store. There was some confusion at the Planning and Zoning Commission earlier on about whether this was a package store or not. It requires a conditional use permit due to the requested neighborhood service zoning district, which is the least intense of the commercial zoning districts that we have. The convenience store is proposed to stay operating in its current location, as I will describe in the conditional use permit presentation coming up. It is, again, the least intense neighborhood services, the least intense of our commercial zoning districts. The property was annexed in January of 2008 and therefore has the default agricultural zoning district. The property is at the Y intersection of Airport Road, also known as Highway 36, and Moffett Road, as you see on the aerial. There's undeveloped land to the north and agricultural or large lot residential to the east across Highway 36 or Airport Road, and then undeveloped and large lot residential to the south and west from the property across Moffett Road. The future land use and character map designates the property agricultural or rural. However, the comprehensive plan recommends the neighborhood service zoning district to complement urban and rural neighborhoods, and so this request complies with the future land use and character map. Moffett Road is a collector street. Highway 36 is a major arterial. The neighborhood service zoning district, part of its purpose statement is that it should be located near the intersection of at least a collector road and another collector or higher road. There's a 2-inch water line that serves the property that's part of the Moffett water supply. There's an on-site existing septic system on the property, and so there are public and private facilities serving the site. This is the surrounding zoning for in the area of the subject property. There is a general retail zoning that was recently approved to the south here near this intersection, and that's in the lower right corner of your screen. This table shows the neighborhood service dimensional requirements of 2.5-story maximum height, front, side, and rear yards of 15 feet, 0 feet, and 10 feet are shown on the screen, and the existing property already conforms to that standard. There were 5 notices mailed to surrounding property owners in anticipation of the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, and 1 was approved in favor of the request, and none were approved in opposition, or were received in opposition of the request. At its June 21st meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 in favor of the proposal, which is to change the zoning of the property from agricultural to neighborhood service due to the comprehensive plan recommending neighborhood service to complement rural and urban areas since it's the most restrictive and least intense commercial zoning district. approval due to the fact that the request complies with the thoroughfare plan and that public and private facilities serve the property. And I can now move on to the conditional use permit portion of the presentation. This is a site plan of the property for the conditional use permit proposal. Just a few things to point out. The existing store and fuel sales are to remain in place as they currently are. They would in effect be, the store only sells non-alcoholic beverages right now, and so they would be basically switching those out with alcoholic beverages in their place. There is an existing line of trees screening any potential adjacent development that could potentially occur to the north of the property, and part of the CUP recommendation that I'll go over in a moment will provide for some replacement trees if those are ever removed or die. These are the general CUP criteria found in the zoning ordinance for any conditional use permit for approval and for you to consider. The first is that granting the CUP would not damage the property values of the surrounding properties, and we believe it meets that criteria and that the overall use of the property is not proposed to change. The establishment of the CUP wouldn't impede the normal and orderly development of the surrounding areas. It's at the corner intersection, and so that shouldn't pose a problem for future development. Adequate utilities, drainage, access roads are in place, and it meets that criteria. There are the arrangement of driveways, parking spaces, and things such as that are adequate, and it meets that criteria. That adequate nuisance prevention measures have been taken to prevent the control of odors, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration. We believe that would not be an issue for this proposed CUP. That directional lighting would be provided so as not to disturb adjacent properties. The size of this property, along with the roads that surround it and the size of the adjacent property, we believe is large enough that the lighting would not be an issue, and that sufficient landscaping and screening to ensure harmony and compatibility with adjacent properties are in place, and that's part of the reason for recommending retaining the existing tree line to the north, on the north side of the property, and for mitigating them if they are removed or die. 3D notices were sent to surrounding property owners, taking just the building footprint size and expanding it the required distance by state statutes, and one person returned approval of the request. Again, P&Z voted 7-0 in favor of the conditional use permit at its June 21st meeting. For approval of the conditional use permit for this case, subject to the following conditions: that use of the property must conform to the conditional use permit site plan that you just saw, which would be an exhibit to the ordinance that would grant the CUP. In the event that the preserved trees on the north property line die or remove, one tree a minimum of 5 feet in height and 2 inches in caliper is required to be planted per 40 linear feet of the north property line. And then the remainder CUP conditions are the standard ones about the permittee needing to operate the establishment in a manner that keeps it free of nuisances, dust, noise, things of that nature. And number 5 has to do with the council being able to revoke a conditional use permit if terms of the conditional use permit are broken by the applicant or by the property owner. And the conditional use permit runs with the land and isn't affected by ownership or anything like that. At this point, I can answer any questions the council may have on these cases.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mabry. Council, questions for Mr. Mabry or staff on this item, these items? If not, I'll declare the public hearing open, and we can receive comments on both 5A and B, the rezoning, as well as the CUP. And so if you care to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on 5A and B, together or separately, as you wish.
Motion to approve item A item 5A and B.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 6 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from general retail district to multifamily 2 district on approximately 1.74 acres of land situated in the Maximo Moreno Survey, abstract number 14, City of Temple, located on the north side of Marlinwood Road, adjacent to and east of 990 Marlinwood Road. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, sir. The purpose of this rezoning is to establish an entryway for a new apartment complex that's proposed for the property and for property to the north of the subject property. The property to the north that I just mentioned is already zoned multifamily 2, and this proposal for rezoning is to allow an entryway to take access to Marlinwood Road. The applicant proposes on 9.7 acres, 180 units, which works out to be 18.5 units per acre. The maximum density for multifamily 2 is 20 units per acre, so the proposal would be under the less than the maximum density that's allowed, so that's a good thing. The subject property being considered would accommodate an entryway for the apartment, a clubhouse, leasing office, and possibly a portion of one of the apartment buildings in the complex. And when you see any site plans or anything, you're not voting on the site plan. Just a reminder, you're voting on the rezoning of the property. Those are just exhibits for your consideration. The aerial photo for the subject property shows its location on Marlinwood in yellow on the screen. There is undeveloped property to the north, it's undeveloped to the east, and there is an office to the west. Across Marlinwood to the south is an assisted living or nursing facility, Cornerstone Gardens. The future land use and character map describes the property as suburban commercial, and felt like that the proposal meets the future land use and character map due to the semi-commercial nature of apartment complexes with their coordinated landscaping, signs, parking, and things of that nature. I didn't show the thoroughfare plan slide, skipped over, but there we go. Marlinwood is a minor arterial, and so the proposal does meet the thoroughfare plan requirements. This slide shows an 8-inch water line and 8-inch sewer line in the vicinity of the property, and so public facilities are in place to serve it. This just gives a better view of the zoning in the surrounding properties. You see to the rear in orange the large swath of multifamily 2 zoning that's just to the north of this property, so it would be extending that area down to meet up with Marlinwood. The dimensional standards for multifamily 2 are shown on the screen: 20 units per acre, a minimum lot width of 60 feet, a minimum lot depth of 120 feet, a maximum height of 4 stories. The proposal is to have 2 and 3 story buildings, so it would not exceed the maximum height requirement for this district. Front yard setback of 25 feet, side yard setback of 15, and a rear setback of 10 feet. Surrounding property owners were notified of the rezoning, 7 of them, and 3 sent in approvals for the rezoning. At its June 21st meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 in favor of this request, which is to change the zoning of the subject property from general retail to multifamily 2. For the following reasons: the request complies with the future land use and character map, it complies with the thoroughfare plan, and public facilities are available to the property. And at this point, I can answer any questions that the council might have.
Thank you, Mr. Mabry. I'm sorry if you said this already, or if we know, is the applicant intending to have this be a gated entryway? Is this a gated complex that you know of?
I think she can answer that. It seems like a lot of complexes nowadays are, but in the public hearing portion, she could probably give that.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay. Other questions for Mr. Mabry before we go to public hearing? If not, this item is posted for a public hearing, and we'll go to public hearing at this time, and I'll declare it open. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name's Angela Hill. I'm the development manager for Encore Multifamily, 5005 LBJ Freeway, Suite 1200, Dallas, Texas. To answer your earlier question regarding the access to the community, it will be a gated, controlled access community off of Marlinwood. And I'm certainly here to answer any other questions you might have on the project at this time.
Ms. Hill, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thanks. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one wishing to speak, no one else wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and council, your pleasure on first reading for item number 6 relating to the rezoning.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second. Is there further discussion? Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lehman?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Thank you very much for your attendance and participation this evening. We are adjourned.